Today we're going to talk about a subject that's pretty timely. We've heard in the news recently about a lot of planes going down, crashing. We just heard about a helicopter crashing this weekend. And to me, when anybody asked me how my flight was, I went to Miami, I went to LA, I've been to Colombia. And I always say to them, once it lands, it's great. And my first comeback is, it beats any flight in handcuffs and shackles and waist chain, because that's how we travel in federal prison. Sometimes when we're going on a transfer from one institution to the next, there's something called holdover. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight because of these planes going down. I always say to people that if you think it's, tricky traveling just in a plane, turbulence, try traveling in handcuffs, shackles, a waist chain, and on a plane that I believe there was 2 of them in the federal system. I could be mistaken. I know I seen 2 different ones that I had got on. So I know there's at least 2 of them. And they are the most rickety planes that you'd ever see in your whole life. It's insane. I thought it was a joke, because there's out of probably the 10, 15 times I had traveled, 8, 9 times on planes, at least 3 or 4 of those times, there was problems with the plane where they had to, do maintenance on the plane right there on the runway. Sometimes we would go to a prison and wait overnight and go there the next day. But when I hear about these planes going down, I'm like, these are planes that have been checked by the FAA, who knows really what it is, And I just believe that, there's so many checks and balances that these planes have to go through, and they're going down. And I've never heard of a plane in the federal system, that transports inmates go down. And, this is despite that, it's the worst conditioned plane that I've ever witnessed, really, that I've ever seen in my life. So I'm not sure if anybody's ever seen the movie Con Air, but I've never seen the whole movie, but I've seen parts of it. And basically, except for the extreme crazy parts that would probably never happen in real life, that's how prisoners travel. What happens is you get put in for a transfer, and depending on your destination, you never know when you're going to leave, but they'll just say, hey, pack up your stuff, you leave, and then you kind of know you're going, and within the next 2 weeks, you're leaving. And what happens is they round everybody up that's going on the transfer from one institution into a holding cell downstairs. It's usually in the basement part of the prison or in another floor of the prison or maybe on the same floor, whatever the case may be is. But they round everybody up. They make sure to do all the meticulous paperwork to make sure you got to say your name and number 100 times, give them all this information that only you could know to make sure that it's the right person leaving the institution. Because at the end of the day, when everybody leaves that institution, the count has to be what the count is supposed to be. So it's kind of I remember my birth date is 9/29, and in the system at some point in time, it got switched to 9/28. I have no idea how that happened, but I said one day, I was, what's your birthday? 9/29/1960. It says 9/28. I said, yeah, 9/28. My fault. Because I just went with it. I knew it would have been a crazy whole, nah, you can't leave, are you sure this is the right date? And then I was ready to go. I wanted to go. So I just said, yeah, 9/28, that's it. And then for the rest of the time that I was in prison, every time they asked me my date, it was 9/28. Yeah, 9/28. Crazy, right? The most meticulous record keepers who never get anything wrong. They had my birth date wrong. Somehow, I don't know how it happened. But that's immaterial. You go into R&D, it's receiving and discharge, right? R&D, and you get stripped out, and then you go into just maybe an orange jumpsuit or just a pair of khaki pants with a T-shirt. And if it's 3 below zero in the wintertime, that's usually how you're traveling, because they figure, you're not going to want to escape in that kind of weather, and they're not going to give you they don't give you a coat. It's the craziest thing in the whole world. They don't give you a coat. You go on a T-shirt. They put like they'll T-shirt, socks, boxes, and like Gilligan shoes, and that's how you transfer. They'll start making a line. Everybody will first get like a waist chain put on, handcuffs that are attached to the waist chain. So there's a chain around your waist with the handcuffs that go through a hole, so you can only move your hands like this much, you know. You can't lift them anywhere else. And then your ankles are cuffed too, and there's a shackles on your ankles. And that's how you travel. So what first happens is you'll get on a bus to get transported to like your next destination. In this case, what I'm talking about is you're going to an airport, the closest airport to your institution that picks up federal prisoners. So for instance, when we left Leavenworth Penitentiary, we went to a smaller airport in Kansas. And from that airport, you don't leave just with your institution. Say there's 40 people. That's what a bus carries, about 40 people. So your bus will arrive and just wait there. You'll stay in handcuffs and shackles, sit in your bus seat, and you'll wait at this airport. You'll see like a plane come in, or you'll just wait near maybe 2 or 3 other buses that are there. Because what happens is a whole line of buses from surrounding institutions will come there and meet you at the airport. And when everything is all said and done, when everybody's ready, say if there's 3 buses, maybe you're the only bus, maybe you're the only institution in that geographical area that's going to pick up prisoners on Con Air. So you just might be one bus, but usually it's about 4, 5, 10, 12, 17, 18, could be any number. Could be 30 buses out there. You know, if you're in say Pennsylvania somewhere where there's a ton of federal institutions, all the buses come, wait for the plane, and then when the plane lands, right, everybody they'll start, the cops will start calling people. You're handcuffed, shackled, waist chain, you're not going far. And now they put you into this space near the airplane. The air marshals come off. There's probably on each plane, I would say there's no less than 15 air marshals on each plane. In addition to the air marshals, there's also staff from every institution that brought inmates that have shotguns. Everybody's armed, well armed. And there's perimeter vehicles on each side of wherever. It's not like TWA or American Airlines. You're in a small little section of an airport where it's heavily armed guards at every point. You'll see officers from institutions, federal marshals with machine guns, just, patrolling the perimeter of that little space of airport that you're on where people are going to be boarding a plane. So when you'll see all this commotion, you'll see all these people just talking. There'll be federal marshals that are taking bag lunches because you got to have a bag lunch on the plane. There'll be federal marshals taking people back and forth to a bathroom on the plane. But at this point in time, you're just lining up to get on the plane. And like I said, if it's 4 below zero, if it's 80 degrees, you're in a T-shirt, khakis, and socks and Gilligan shoes, them blue slipper-like shoes that Gilligan used to wear on Gilligan's Island. And you're waiting in a line. They'll start lining people up. So say there's like 20 people, a single file of 20 people. Then there'll be another single file of 20 people, another. So you have like a box of people that are just waiting there. And if it's freezing, the wind is blowing, you're just waiting there until everybody gets situated. And once everybody gets situated and everybody has every bus has their inmates out, then they'll stop boarding the plane. They'll say, listen up. Listen for your name and number. When I call your name and number, come up the stairs and board the plane. So they'll start naming your names and numbers. People will get out of the line, try to walk up them stairs on that plane with your ankles shackled. It's It's a task, to say the least. So you walk up those stairs, and there's air marshals everywhere. There's people from the Federal Bureau of Prisons down on the ground, air marshals in the plane, pilots in the cockpit. And the air marshal will be directing, okay, so there'll be like every couple rows, there'll be an air marshal. Okay, you're going down here, and they start seating people. And once the plane has been full, they tell you, listen, because sometimes there's women prisoners at the very front of the plane as well. So like when they land that plane, most of the time, how I've seen it, is that there's already inmates on the plane. Because they're coming, they usually make a run. It's either a West Coast or an East Coast run, and they'll pick up, the 10 or 12 airports that they run. Maybe it's a run where they're doing the Northeast. Maybe it's 5 airports. Maybe it's New Jersey, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina. So they're picking up prisoners, and you're waiting for the plane to arrive. Now, when you board that plane, it may be empty. I'm sure it is at times. I've never seen it empty. Whenever I got on a plane, there was already prisoners on the plane, meaning that they had made another stop somewhere else first, and I was a stop along the way. So you board the plane, and the marshals will tell you, don't talk to other inmates. Definitely don't talk to the women, because we're supposed to be segregated from the women all the time. So, people will talk back and forth a little bit. I remember my friend, yelling from the back of the plane, Johnny. I look back and see a dude I know from another joint and was, hey, what's up? Just a quick hello, quick what's up. And then, the marshal will be like, hey, quiet down. Don't yell back and forth. I mean, you can probably talk to your guy next to you that you probably don't even know him. I'm just saying, hey, where you coming from? Where you going? So when the plane is filled, then they start moving. So they'll start taxiing just like a regular plane. And now, if it's a longer flight and you're in transit for the day, they'll give you a bag lunch on the plane. And so they give you mind you, you're handcuffed and shackled to a waist chain, and you're trying to eat like this. So it's pretty difficult. And, you have probably just like a bologna sandwich, and, that's your lunch for the day. So don't drop it, whatever you do. Hold on to it with a death grip. So, I've told you there's been instances where, the marshals will say, hey, listen, we're getting back off the plane because the plane needs maintenance. How's that sound? You think it's helpless being, so many feet in the air on a plane. Picture being handcuffed and shackled where you probably ain't going to make it anyway, but just the feeling of helplessness being handcuffed and shackled in a plane. I've seen people really come out of their character, really, scream in a high voice, I can't do it, I can't, no. People throwing up. It's a disheartening feeling when, if you have a fear of flying, you'll take a train, right? But when you're in federal custody, you go the way they tell you to go. You really don't have much of a choice. I don't care if you're kicking, biting, scratching, you're getting on the plane, you're going for a plane ride, whether you like it or not. So on these few instances, one I can remember vividly is when we got off the plane, they made us all get back onto our buses. So you're already been up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you're leaving early, because you're getting transferred. So it's already a long day getting longer, and you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going to end up that day. You might go to your institution that day. You might be in a holdover. You might go back to your own institution and say, hey, we'll try this again when we're ready for it. Then you have no property. Then, it's a nightmare, really. So it's a horrible situation, but you just want it to get over with and be streamlined. You definitely don't want to take 10 steps back and do it all over again. So you're just hoping that, man, I just hope we get on this plane, because now they just might say, hey, the plane's inoperable. We can't, because it's been close a few times. This thing is rickety. You hear this thing. I'm like, you serious? So it's a pretty dicey situation. So that one time that I remember, I think we probably waited. I didn't have a watch on, but I think we waited about 2 hours. And then we finally boarded the plane. Everything. We went through that whole process again, get everybody outside, get everybody on the plane, and then we were on our way. And the first time when I was leaving Leavenworth Penitentiary, that was my first institution. So where we went was Oklahoma City. And what Oklahoma City is actually a federal transfer center. It's an FTC. There's names that precede it, like USP is United States Penitentiary. FCI is Federal Correctional Institution. That could be a medium or a low, because there's FCI Fort Dix, FCI McKean. Those are mediums, those are lows. So a federal correctional institution could either be a medium or a low. But a USP is always a penitentiary, and that's the highest security, although places like United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, the United States Penitentiary in Atlanta are now medium security institutions. They had changed their security designation levels, but they're still called United States Penitentiary. It's the name of the building. But it's a medium security institution for both Leavenworth and Atlanta as well. So getting back to flying into Oklahoma City, a federal transfer center. It's actually an airport. It's a Federal Bureau of Prisons airport. And you fly into Oklahoma City, and they have, they'll, just as they do in a regular airport, put the hallway up onto the airplane, and you walking through a hallway, and you walk all the way in to the institution, and then you go to holding cages. And anybody that's ever been in FTC Oklahoma knows how much of a nightmare those are. It's just noise, like people screaming, trying to talk over each other. And and after an already long day, you've already had a plane ride, 2 bus rides. You're just ready to get to a room and go to bed, to get to a cell and go to bed. And God knows I've had so many nightmares over there, going to a cell, somebody I couldn't live with, so I had to go out. They brought me to the hole after I refused the cell a couple of times. It's a long, brutal day. But I just thought that it would be timely because of these planes going down to, my comeback is how was the flight was. It was the best flight I ever had. I wasn't handcuffed and shackled with a waist chain. And I don't know if there's much you're going to do at so many thousand feet in the air if your plane does go down, but I'm sure it's a lot worse, that psychological madness of just having handcuffs, shackles, and a waist chain on. So next time you're flying, just be grateful that you're not flying on Con Air. And that's it for this one. The next one's going to be the monetary system in prison. Right? So we don't use regular money, and it's all going to lead up to how we gamble in prison. So it's going to be a couple of interesting episodes next. This was Con Air, because a lot of these planes have been going down. That helicopter went down. So I just wanted to touch on sometimes how we get transferred on Con Air and what that looks like in real time, not just what you've seen on a movie.